welcome to another episode of Earning the Hate. Hey gun people, this is a really good video by this, he's got Esquire, so he must be a lawyer. And it's about what the FBI and the government is doing, and I'm going to explain some things from a cop perspective on what he's talking about. He's giving you the lawyer legal stuff. I'm going to give you what cops are taught as part of the government and informants and things. So if you want to go watch the video, it's on his channel. This is the plot to dismiss. You go watch the whole video without me interrupting it, but I'm going to go through and probably jump through and skip some things to where he's talking about some stuff and just give you my take on it.
Piece together exactly what's happening here, but let's make sure we're familiar with the co-defendants themselves. We can see them here. Remember, we started with 6 in this case. Ty Garbin is no longer on the screen. He took a plea deal. He's going to be working with the government, and we're left with these 5 co-defendants. Of course, we've got Fox, Franks, Brandon, Caserta, Harris, and Croft. These are the gentlemen who are sort of bunched together. Their case is scheduled for a jury trial March 8th, 2022. And so they are filing this motion to dismiss because they are upset with some of the officers, some of the FBI agents who were involved in the investigation.
And they should be upset. These guys are outrageous.
Of course, we're talking about these 3 gentlemen. We've spoken about them before on the show. This is Special Agent Impala. We've got Special Agent Trask. He was somebody who was let go from the FBI, actually has a domestic assault case against his wife. And then we have Special...
Shocking. Domestic violence. And he's bald. And then he's bald. And he's almost bald. Anyway, I digress. These are FBI agents. People have this impression that all FBI agents look like FBI agents. These guys made a huge error by allowing these 3 to manipulate them, by letting someone in that you know nothing about that's befriending you. But anyway, let's go.
Special Agent Chambers, we spent some time talking about him and his company that we'll detail a little bit further. So as I mentioned, we have this motion. This is the motion to dismiss coming forward by the attorneys for the 5 co-defendants, the 5 gentlemen here. And the thing that is so fun about this is this was filed on 12/25. Of course, that's Christmas Day, filed on that day and signed off on by all the different attorneys here as part of this case. Scott Graham, we've got Christopher Gibbons, he's representing Fox, Joshua Blanchard for Croft, Julia Kelly for Harris.
So I think he didn't say it, but when you file a motion, you trigger timelines. And I think these guys did this to screw the prosecution because they weren't going to be able to sit on their ass and get paid for all the Christmas and New Year's and all this other holiday shit, because now they have a motion that they have to respond to. So I think that's why they picked this day. But he didn't say that. I'm saying that.
Michael Hills for Caserta, and then Scott Graham, of course, is Christmas Day, just dropping this big whopper right in the lap of prosecutors. This is a motion to dismiss, and it's alleging that the government was involved in serious misconduct. And so it's quite a present to drop down the Christmas down the chimney is what I was thinking of. And so here is the motion to dismiss the superseding indictment. So superseding indictment means that this was the actual filing of the charges. They want to dismiss this, the most recent set of charges. They're asking for a dismissal, and they're saying that this needs to be done on the basis of government overreach and misconduct. And we've been talking a lot about this in the Whitmer plot.
I absolutely agree. This is outrageous. People, if you are not scared of your government yet, watching this, you shouldn't trust anybody. I mean, it is just crazy what these FBI agents did. The FBI has totally made the freaking KGB look like a bunch of kindergarten kids. They have grown in power and size and scope and secret courts and secret warrants and secret judges and manipulating elections and trying to overthrow elections. I mean, our FBI is the most uncredible agency in our government. And I know a lot of my gun people think that the ATF is the worst, and they are bad. All federal agents and all federal government is bad. They're out of control. But until the people step up and say no more, they're just going to keep getting more out of control. This is outrageous. The shit they're doing to people up in D.C. and got them still locked up for the big resurrection, the big riot where nothing was burned and nothing was stolen. Yet the peaceful protest where everything got burned, everything got stolen. No, that was just Black Lives Matter having a peaceful protest. It's just, I'm just so fed up with the federal government.
For a long time. So let's go through this. I'm going to try to cut through a lot of the legalese. They moved the court to dismiss the charges against them. In support of this motion, we have the following memorandum. Here, essentially what we're saying is the evidence demonstrates an egregious overreach by government agents and by the informants that those agents handled. So not only the FBI agents, but the confidential human sources, the confidential informants that the FBI was working with, they were manipulating them. The key to the government's plan, they say, was to turn general discontent with Governor Whitmer's COVID policies into crimes that could then be prosecuted.
So before we get through all this, in case you want to go watch the whole video or you want to watch me, whatever, basically these FBI guys wanted them to go kidnap the governor. So they infiltrate, they make this, they start calling these guys head of the white supremacists, head of this group, head of that group, and they get all this bullshit and they try to say, we want to go. They're putting the criminal idea into the head. That you can't do it. That's entrapment. That, you know, people say, man, a speed trap's entrapment. A speed trap isn't entrapment because they're merely setting up in an area where they think you're going to speed and you speed and they catch you. That's not a speed. That's not government putting the idea in your head to break the law. What these guys did is they actually introduced the idea of the crime, promoted the crime, and tried to further the crime. Even though the citizens were saying, we don't want to do that. We don't think that's good. The FBI, the government, the agents of the government who were working for, and that's where where I don't think he drives home enough in here. He keeps differentiating between the FBI and their informants, kind of like they're different. They're not. If I've got a paid informant and I'm paying them, they become a government agent. They work for me. I am responsible for what they do. And if I can't do it, they can't do it. If they can't break the law, I can't break the law. And these FBI agents just went rogue and said, we don't give a shit. We don't have to conform with the law. We can do what the hell we want. We're the FBI. And we make the HK or the KGB look like pussies. Outrageous.
Defense attorneys here say the government picked what they knew would be a sensational charge, a conspiracy. It refused to accept its failure, and it continued to push its plan. Eventually, the government initiated this case, despite the fact that it knew that there was no plan to kidnap, no operational plan, and no details about how a kidnapping would occur or what would happen afterward.
See, my big question here is if they're filing a motion to dismiss, that means this has already went in front of a grand jury in order to get an indictment and charge these guys. Why didn't a grand jury ask these questions? Why wasn't these facts presented to the grand jury? Well, the reason why the facts here, because the defense doesn't have a right to be at a grand jury. You have to know about it. You have to request, and then I still don't know if they have to make you. That would be a lawyer question. If I say my client wants to appear at the grand jury, I don't know if the government's required to let him appear. Because remember, grand juries are run by the government for the government. The DA, the prosecutor, the U.S. attorney, whoever it is, they get to talk to their people and present whatever they want with nobody questioning, no counter, no cross-examination. They bring in witnesses. They only ask the questions that provoke the answers they want. It's just really like a rogue court to get an arrest warrant. And it's bullshit. But anyway, let's go.
They say there was no conspiracy. In fact, they say there was no misconduct at all. The defendants were constantly repudiating what the government wanted them to do. And really what this comes down to is entrapment as a matter of law. In other words, the government entrapped them. The government caused all of this to happen, and the defendants are innocent. And because the government overstepped, it's now appropriate for the court to dismiss the entire case. All of the charges brought forward, the government's misconduct is so bad that it warrants just dropping all of the charges.
I agree. This is the same thing as if I go to a call and a guy beat his wife, and I decided to beat the shit out of the guy. They would drop the charges against the guy for beating his wife because me, as a government official, my conduct was so egregious and I had no reason to dish out justice. They are going to suppress everything the government had and say, you know what, government, if you don't act accordingly, we're not going to allow you to charge and we're going to throw out your case. So you better act accordingly or you're going to lose. That's the spirit and intent of the law. And the grand jury should have said, we ain't giving an indictment on this bullshit case because it sounds too good to be true. It probably is.
So they explain how and why this is entrapment. They say, look, regarding the initial suggestion of wrongdoing, and there was an expression of reluctance. Back on July 7, 2020, multiple defendants and others were together when someone apparently raised the subject of kidnapping, and someone in the group immediately said, quote, "Not cool with offensive kidnapping." Okay, way back on July 7th, somebody said that.
Okay, who do you think brought up the kidnapping? The government, the FBI agents. That's entrapment. That is mentioning a criminal act and trying to convince others to act in that criminal way. And then the FBI agents come in and arrest you for committing a crime that their agent and whether it's an FBI agent or his informant, it's still an agent of the government. Either one is just the same. My informant can't do it and I can't do it. If I got an informant, I can't go in there and say, "Hey guys, what are you guys doing, man? Hey, I want you to go in this house and here's all the stuff. I'm going to give you all the stuff to make crank. And I want you to go in this house and start making methamphetamine." And the guy goes there, "Hey man, you guys want to make meth?" And they go, "I don't know, not really. Hey, can I use your kitchen?" "Yeah, I guess. Go ahead." And then you make crank, and then the cops bust in the door and arrest everybody. And they go, "Hey, you knew about it. It was a conspiracy." Government can't set you up, and they shouldn't be able to set you up that way. This is such egregious conduct by the FBI that everybody wants to keep telling me how great they are. It's just outrageous. And again, I work for them. I had an FBI badge. I was sworn in as an FBI agent. Don't tell me I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to FBI. They are freaking out of control and they think they can do anything. And you know what? I think they're right because they do get away with everything.
Others, including defendants Frake and Harris, echoed that sentiment. So back when all this was bubbling up, nobody was cool with it. Incident shows that there was no predisposition to kidnap the governor, Governor Whitmer, or anybody else. Fast forward to July 18th. There was a, quote, national militia meeting that was held by the government. In this instance, they're talking about the FBI and the U.S. government hosting these meetings.
This is outrageous. So the FBI is literally spending taxpayer. Oh, and they paid one of their informants over 50 grand. I don't know if I'm going to get to that or if I skip over it. But the FBI is paying 50 grand to a guy to try and set these mean white people up. I'm sorry, I can't say white people. Race doesn't matter. To set these people up. So, government paying money, renting a place, hosting a meeting, naming the meeting, and then suggesting that they commit a felony by kidnapping the governor. And now these guys are being charged. Out freaking outrageous.
Not another organization, sort of this fake militia group that the government is creating. When they were at that event, Ty Garbin rebuffed a confidential human source's suggestion about kidnapping a public official. Garbin said, "So I think an objective to go for is not the kidnapping. Right? I don't think that's a good idea." They're referencing a motion to admit statements where that language is held. 3 weeks later, we go forward to August 9th, defendant Daniel Harris.
So if they have to do a motion to admit the statement, that means the statement wasn't given probably in the grand jury. Or the government said they didn't have the statement or it's not part of the charges. So, I never heard of making a motion to admit a statement. Statements are admitted as evidence. I didn't know you had to make a motion to do that. Again, I'm used to working on the prosecution side. Prosecution doesn't have to make a motion to admit their stuff. Maybe the defense does. I don't know.
This gentleman over here on the left, he told the lead confidential human source and others, says, quote, "No snatch and grab. I swear to effing God. Okay, we're not going to do that." And he's being charged.
Right here, he's being charged. He said, "No snatch and grab. I swear to effing God. Don't do it." He doesn't want to commit a crime. He's being pressured by the government and their informants at their fake militia meeting that's paid for by the government, and they're trying to get them to commit to a felony. This is freaking outrageous, people. I mean, look, you people better wake the hell. I've been telling you people for years, you need to buy more guns and ammo. And I'm telling you people, it may not happen in my lifetime, but there is going to come a time when you're going to have to pick a side. And you're either going to bow to the government or you're going to say enough's enough. This is freaking outrageous conduct. These guys, these FBI agents and everyone involved should be facing criminal charges and should be going to prison. You know what? They won't because the government doesn't care. They encourage this. They want this. They want more power. They want to be able to set up you pesky citizens. Freaking outrageous.
With being a part of this conspiracy, even though he said back then on August 9th, no snatch and grab. Ty Garbin back then seconded his repudiation, withdrawing from the conspiracy, said kidnapping is just as bad as going into the Capitol. In other words, I don't want to do it. So you've got Garbin, who is not here. Garbin already took a plea deal. Franks and Harris and several people repudiating.
Okay, so this Garbin took a plea deal and he's working for the government now. because part of the deal, if you make a deal, you got to testify against all these guys. So I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what his statements are. I don't know if he's saying, if he's telling the government, oh yeah, these guys really want to do it and they use this and they did that. So they're going to use this co-conspirator against the rest of the guys, even though they mentioned it, they started it, they did the meeting, and they pushed the idea. Outrageous.
The government's attempts to go out there and engage in the kidnapping. This motion continues. You see on the left, this is Special Agent FBI Impala. He testified back during August 9th. He confirmed that all the defendants reacted negatively to the idea of kidnapping. Somebody asked a question to Impala.
I'm surprised he told the truth. I'll be honest. I'm really surprised that he got up there and they just charged these guys with doing that, and he actually testified that they didn't want to do it. That kind of shocks me. I still think he's an FBI federal freaking flunky piece of shit, but I'm kind of shocked that he did this. I'm kind of wondering why.
Can we call it that, all right? And what's the reaction of the group when Adam Fox talked about this idea being the kidnapping? Impala, during this line of questioning, says, well, there was a negative reaction. People were surprised. They didn't take to it kindly. There were a lot of questions being asked about it. Kind of seemed like it was over the top. This was back during a prior probable cause hearing. After that meeting, later on in the evening, Special Agent Chambers, who we're going to see next, and Impala, they participated in a phone call they called confidential human source Dan and Adam Fox. Okay, so now you have three people who are on the side of the government versus Adam Fox. You've got this FBI agent Impala, you've got Special Agent Chambers, who's not on the screen, and confidential human source Dan, all calling Adam Fox.
Okay, so now we have three government. Now see, he kind of, when he mentions this, he kind of makes a difference between the FBI agent and these two guys. In the law, they're the same. They are all government agents. These guys work for this government agent. This government agent works for the government. They work for the prosecutor. They work for the state's attorney. They're all government agents equally. Not one of them can do something that the other one can't do. Now, these guys obviously don't have police powers like the special agent. But when it comes to an investigation, these guys can't plant evidence no more than this guy can. These guys can't break into a place illegally no more than this guy can. They're all the same in the eyes of the government.
Dan says, what do you think about everybody where they're at? Like what do you think about this kidnapping idea? Fox says, definitely divided. Dan says, like you're planning all? He says, I mean, we're divided. Like, this is not something that we want to do. We're having doubt.
So we're divided. See, we don't know who we are. Is he talking like we, the five that are charged? Or is he talking about everyone else that they're talking to? We don't know who we're divided are.
And conversations about this. This continues. Defense motion says that these people had no desire whatsoever to kidnap anyone. Yet the government wouldn't drop the idea. Confidential human sources, they continue to broach plans despite official government admonitions barring the suggestion of such plans. The government's not supposed to make these suggestions like kidnapping and killing the governor, but they did. Phone calls like the one above represent a mere appetizer. Confidential human sources handlers, aka the FBI agents, pulled the puppet strings the entire time. On August 28th, confidential human source Dan asked Special Agent Chambers, who's over here. Dan is represented by this anonymous photograph. He is not an official government agent, but Chambers is. And so they're having a conversation.
See, he's wrong there. He is an official government agent. As soon as he works and makes a deal with the government, as soon as he acts in the interest of the government, he becomes a government agent. He absolutely is a government agent.
Dan asks Chambers, would you want 2 trips or wait till we get more guys? This was part of his attempts to, quote, get it right for the government. Chambers wants him to do things, and Dan wants to make sure he gets it right. In state court, then we have Special Agent Impala. He affirmed his direct role in telling confidential human sources what to say to people. Impala then is educating Dan through the assistance of Chambers to have conversations with Fox and others. He told the CHS what to say to Adam Fox. He was communicating with the confidential human source during the confidential human source's conversation with Fox. So in other words, it was almost as if Fox was actually directly communicating with Impala because he was there and guiding the conversation.
It's exactly as if he is. He said it's almost like, no. Anything that this government agent, Dan, does at the direction of either of these agents is the same thing as if they did it. They cannot direct him without being the director of the scene. It's bullshit. It is outrageous. It is flagrant freaking entrapment. It is flagrant abuse of power. These guys ought to be under the freaking jail, setting the example for freaking dirty federal government. You federal flunkies need to be held accountable. And if they had tar and feathering, I'd want your ass tarred and feathered. This is outrageous conduct. And the problem with our country now is the more government protects these people, protects rogue cops, and looks the other way for rogue politicians doing illegal shit, the more the people have no other choice. When peaceful protests are outlawed, violent revolution is mandated. When you give people no other choice to fight the government, their only choice is to use violence back against the government that uses violence on the citizens. I mean, this is where the government is pushing this country. It's outrageous.
And Impola then is suggesting that Fox come train at Joe Morrison's property, and he was urging Fox to do so. So you have this very, very close connection between these two. We also have Special Agent Chambers. Now, we've talked about Chambers previously on this channel. Given Chambers' role in directing activities here, also sort of coordinating this whole thing, he, in a company, tweeted about the investigation. We explored that in an earlier video. The defense explored it as well. Special Agent Chambers dissolved the company, ex-Intel, filed papers with the Secretary of State out of New Mexico.
So, I'm confused on whether or not this company is his private business, or is it a shell corporation or company paid for by taxpayer dollars and run by the FBI. So either way, this guy is using this company to promote government lies and to endorse criminal actions against government officials, the governor, to try and get him kidnapped. And he's doing it all under the ruse and under the protection of the government and his little fake FBI badge. Out-freaking-rageous.
He had also a different company called Infragard that actually owned the trademark for ex-Intel, and there's some very interesting things going on there. He dissolved the company. Defense notes, timing seems pretty interesting, a little bit more than coincidental given the issues raised in this case and also presented in the media, alleging that these guys entrap the defendants. Commercial behavior only compounds the overreaching and the emotional manipulation and the government's strategic planning that ultimately came up short. Bears noting that in an analogous context, one involving an agent's prior coercive scheme, Sixth Circuit has said evidence relating to an agent's tactics and motivations is admissible, and the trial courts abuse their discretion in excluding it. What they're telling the court is that the Sixth Circuit, the court that is one head above us, has said historically that you can get evidence about tactics and motivation into court. It's admissible. So what they're saying is that we can talk about this stuff from ex-Intel. We can talk about Special Agent Chambers' extracurricular activities. And they're saying this is justifying the motion to dismiss, therefore court, please grant it. Here is a reminder about what those documents look like. This is out of the official of the Secretary of State of New Mexico. You can see the LLC that was formed here is ex-Intel, EXE Intel LLC. It was something that had a mailing address filed on April 4th, 2019. Registered names, Jason Chambers, Special Agent Chambers. So he's got this ex-Intel company that the trademark is owned by Infragard that is also formulated, also out of New Mexico. Very weird things going on with Special Agent Chambers.
Again, I want to know, is he paying for that with his own money, and is it private? And why is he using it in an investigation if it is? And if it isn't, who paid for it, who knew about it, and who authorized it? Absolutely outrageous.
The defense motion continues. It says, court, the defendants here never agreed to the government's kidnapping plan, a repudiation that even the government implicitly recognizes they didn't want to do it. In response to the defendant's rejection of the plot, government agents then prompted Dan to propose alternative, less violent property crimes. So when they said, no, we're not going to murder and kidnap the governor, they said, okay, we're going to tamper this down a little bit. The government and CHS Dan proposed these ideas in an effort to hang on to something to justify their work. They've been putting so much time and effort into this. They had to come up with something. They couldn't just be setting these guys up for several years or months in this case, but working on projects like this for a lot longer and not come back with something fruitful.
Absolutely outrageous, people. I mean, I'm telling you, man, if anybody would have suggested or did this when I was working, it would have been stopped and stopped up. What the hell are you doing? You can't freaking do that. You just blew the whole investigation. Now we have to start over because your dumbass is actually recommending criminal felony acts. I mean, what happens is, and so you understand a conspiracy is two or more people that conspire to commit a crime. And to complete the conspiracy, it takes one overt act. An overt act is someone doing something in the furtherance of that crime. So let's just say I'm a federal agent and I go, hey, let's kidnap the governor. And then a couple of guys that hear this go, yeah. And now these two guys, without me, the federal government, go and kidnap the government and kill him and kill the governor. Now I am culpable because not only did I initiate the conspiracy, I was involved in the conspiracy. I started the conspiracy in motion, and now someone is dead. That's why government's not allowed to do this. This is so freaking outrageous, and I can't believe it wasn't. Because look, he's only naming a few of these cops that are in the reports of doing this, but the FBI doesn't take a shit without 2 or 3 people to take care of paperwork and to follow them and to back them up and to have witnesses and overwatch. They don't do anything by themselves. So there are several, if not 15 or 20 agents in the peripheral of this investigation that knew this was going on and didn't do anything. And they ought to be tarred and feathered and brought up on charges as well. And when I say tar and feather, I'm not encouraging anybody to go out there and beat up these FBI agents. I'm just telling you, tar and feathering used to be when you were fucking up in the government, the people held your ass accountable. And these guys need to be held accountable.
Here's some of the other suggestions they provided. Well, if we're not going to kidnap her, maybe we can fire some rounds into her cottage. How about that? You know, just drive by.
Out freaking outrageous. Again, when an agent, and it doesn't matter whether it's Chambers, the actual FBI agent, or his informant that works for him, reports to him, is getting paid by him, is actually an agent of the government, doesn't matter who says it, when you start trying to encourage or suggest shooting at somebody and somebody ends up dead, that is the most egregious thing that can happen when somebody ends up dead because you're trying to provoke criminal acts just so you can make a name, just so you can take another picture of your bald head smiling that you're a special agent with the FBI. Outrageous. This guy is a freaking communist terrorist piece of shit.
By and just pop some rounds off in there and then actually send the shell casings to her. Notably, government actors made the first effort to find the address for the cottage. So it was somebody's brilliant idea to do this, and then the government agents went, no, we happen to have the address right here. If you'd like.
Oh my God. That is called an overt act. They just completed the conspiracy. The government agents conspired to commit a felony. Remember, for conspiracy, you don't even have to complete the crime. Conspiracy for a misdemeanor is a felony. It is worse for me to, hey man, let's go in and steal the candy bar. Okay, when you go in, you distract the worker and I'll steal the candy bar. The conspiracy to do that is a felony. Stealing the candy bar is a misdemeanor. So conspiracy is one of those crimes that, look, we don't want people planning, encouraging, and taking acts to furtherance kidnappings, shootings, robbery, rape. We don't want that happening, so it's very serious crime. These agents committed conspiracy when they first suggested it to 2 or more people. Now you have a group, and you talked about a crime, and now somebody got the address of the location. That is the overt act to further conspiracy. The government suggested it, and they committed the overt act. This is just, when I watched this video, I was like, are you freaking kidding me? This cannot be happening. People, I'm telling you, our government is so far out of control. And people come here and go, Rick, well, you were a cop. You did the same thing. I never, ever did anything like this. We did not commit crimes in order to... There's plenty of crime out there without me having to try to talk people into committing crimes. Okay? People like this guy in the FBI who target people and try to get them in crimes, they are the worst of the worst. They use their government power, influence, money, protection, immunity, and they set up pesky citizens and put them in prison. Absolutely outrageous.
You'd like to go do it. We have the address for you. The defense is referencing a different case called McClernand, where the court found entrapment as a matter of law when the agents initiated the unlawful activity. When the agents started it, you can't blame it on the other people. Here, they got the address. By doing things like telling the defendant to keep his eyes open for possible drug connections. They started it. The defendant...
Crazy. I'm telling you, man, my head has just been shaking so much on this case. I just can't believe it.
Put so little thought into the idea of kidnapping the governor that back on September 13, 2020, when the FBI and their confidential human sources and the defendants, when they reached Elk Rapids in the late evening hours, they failed to find the governor's cottage because they had the wrong address. They couldn't even get there. That incorrect address was provided by Special Agent Chambers at 10:14. As people were making their way from the Cadillac, Elk special agents provided a street number beginning with 7 and ending with 5 when the actual number began with 6 and ended in 5. Well, maybe he didn't...
Now, the reason why this happened is the government thought they were being slick. We're going to give them the wrong address. So if we can get them to visit the wrong address, then they will have to look up and find the right address, which is right down the street. And then we can charge them with committing an overt act because they got the correct address. Now, we don't know if they were driving by to protest, to say they know where he lives. We don't know why they were going there. Now, the government's going to claim, oh, no, they went there so they could shoot at it and so they could kidnap him because they put the idea. I mean, this case is just, it's straight out of a freaking Tom Clancy freaking novel of government conspiracy. I can't believe it.
I want to give him the governor's actual address. So he gave him a fake address. That I can understand. The government's ride-along itinerary.
See, he thinks they gave him the fake address so they could say I didn't give him the real one. I think they gave it to him and it was close so they could get them to find the real address, which is an overt act to complete and further the conspiracy.
It was lost to this error. Apparently, the FBI and the confidential human sources had planned to drive their targets to the governor's cottage so these targets could be captured on a poll cam that had been installed in advance for the purpose of acquiring evidence.
So let me clear this up so a 5-year-old can explain it. The government had a fake meeting, got these guys, suggested they kidnap the governor, gave them the wrong address, set up a poll cam so they could capture these guys driving by and use that as evidence against them. I mean, you can't even make this shit up. This guy has got a career in Hollywood freaking writing fucking shit on how crooked the government is. Absolutely crazy.
None of the targets knew the government intended to have them actually go to the cottage as part of the ride-along or enter upon the governor's private property. The government received and controlled every aspect of the alleged plot. On September 5th, 2020, Agent Jason Chambers texted confidential human source Dan, says, quote, mission is to kill the governor, specifically.
Wow. I mean, this agent literally put it in writing in a text to his fellow agent. Once Dan becomes a paid confidential informant, he is an agent of the government. I have to keep reinforcing that because it's very easy to think, well, Dan didn't know and he's not really part of the government. No. He is the government. As soon as he works for this agent, it's like pinning a badge on him. He is now a government employee. He is responsible to the government and the government is responsible for him. They are both part of the prosecution team at this point. Outrageous.
Special Agent Chambers sends that to Dan. Dan is then the person working with the other co-defendants.
Okay, so we're at 30 minutes here. I'm going to make a part 2 to this because this is just, it's just crazy. I can't believe it.